Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Bola, and if you are just seeing my video for the very first time on my channel today, you are welcome. Please hit on the subscribe button and turn the notification bell. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful African print corset Milkmaid top. So if it's something you're interested in, please stick around and let's dive into the video. Alright guys, so at this point we should have our pattern drafting tools ready. I already went ahead to draw out margin lines, which will just serve as starter lines or starting lines. So from this vertical point, I'll be taking my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the starting line. My shoulder measurement is 15 and I'm going to be taking half of that, which is 7.5. Alright, so from that point now I'll be coming down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. But before then, I went ahead to get my measurement. That's my bust point, my under bust, my waist, which is my half length, and then the basque length, because it's going to have like a basque kind of thing. So that is also the full length. I also went ahead to do that on the other side in order to get a straight line so that I can draw across the line. Then I went ahead to label it bust point, under bust, waistline, and full length, which can also be labeled M line. Alright, so from the shoulder point, I came down by 1 inch for shoulder slope, and then I went ahead to measure my neck width and neck depth. The neck depth is not necessary because I don't need this neckline. Then I connected the points of the shoulder slope from the neck width. From that point, I went ahead to measure my armhole line, and then I was just making sure that whatever I have on that shoulder point is also the same as what I have down there, so that I can get a straight line. So my armhole line divided by 2 is what I measured there, and then I just extended out the line. So this line that we've achieved now is our chest line. Alright, so in order to get our armhole curve, I'm going to be dividing my bust by 4, and then I placed it on that point, and then I divided my armhole with my tape into 2, and then from that point I came in by half an inch, and now I'm going to be joining these 3 points with curve rule like so. Alright, so the next thing we'll be doing is our dart. So we'll be taking our nipple to nipple measurement on the full line and the chest line, and then I'm going to mark a straight line to join this point. So this new line is going to be called the apex line. Well, that's what it's called. So from the bust point, we'll be going down by half an inch, and then on the waistline actually, whatever you see in this video at this point is wrong. I corrected it, so please take note. On the waistline, we'll be going in by half an inch on both sides. Make sure it's on the waistline before you connect the dart line, because I already rectified that. Alright, yes, this is the point where I rectified it. I just wanted to make sure that you see that. So on the waistline, we'll be going in on both sides by half an inch, and then we're going to be joining those points to meet the top line, which I came down by half an inch on earlier. And then from the waistline, which I've taken in, I'm going to be joining it back to the full line, which is the M line too, in order to get the dart, because the dart is meant to stop at the waistline. I hope you get that. Alright, so the next thing we're going to be doing is to get our curve for the Milkmaid gathers pattern part. Alright, so from the under bust line, I'm going to be coming up by 1 inch, and then I'm going to mark a point there, and I'm going to be connecting that point to the dart line. You can use your free hand, or you can decide to use your French curve. Just make sure when you do it, you have a very, very nice sweet curve like this, but it's advisable you use your French curve. The next thing we'll be doing is to be getting our off shoulder line armhole curve. So in order to do this, the first thing I went ahead to do was to extend the straight armhole line, and then I came down. I made sure it was 1 inch. I extended it down by half an inch. I extended it down by half an inch, and then I drew the line outwards. So this new line is going to be the new chest line. It's just for us to get our off shoulder stuff. Alright, so I made sure that whatever I had as my round bust measurement on the former chest line was also what I placed on the new chest line. I hope you get what I'm saying. And then from this new point, I went out by half an inch, and that is the point where I'll be connecting to the dart line. Please, if you don't get my explanation, just try to watch the video as many times as you can. So this was just me trying to place the curve in order to see how, or to make sure that it sits perfectly well. When I was sure that this is what I wanted, I went ahead to draw the line. As you can see, we have a sweet, smooth, seamless curve right now. The next thing to do is to get the armhole for the off shoulder, because it's not going to be like the regular one. So from the bust line above the old bust line, I came up by 2.5 inches. After I marked 2.5 inches point, I placed the tape horizontally, and then I measured in 0.75 inches. Please, that's 3/4 inches. I make sure you place the tape in a way that the line is straight. Then after I was sure of the line, I went ahead to make the curve. It's advisable to just use your French curve because it just makes everything seamless and easier for you. So in order to get the neck depth now, from the bust point, I am going to come up by 1.5 inches. You can come up by 2 inches. And for this armhole line, it depends on how much coverage you want. You can decide to go up by 3 inches. It depends on your bust. It depends on different sizes. So, but for the purpose of this video, I just decided to use 1.5 inches. So the next thing we'll be doing is to be taking our get measurement, which is our bust, our waist, and our hip measurements. That's round bust. So I already took my bust measurements. Take notes. So now I'll be taking my under bust measurements divided by 4. The under bust measurement divided by 4 is like 30. That's 7.5. Do not forget the dart intake there. I'm going to be replacing it. And then my waist measurement divided by 4 also. Then measure what we took out there for that, because we'll be cutting it out. What I have there is 1 inch, because I took ½ inch on both sides. The next thing I went ahead to do was to measure my M measurement, and then I went ahead to join those lines together. From this point, you can decide to add your sewing allowance, stitching allowance. It depends on you. You're going to see that I did that last minute, so you can just decide to do that, or you can do it when you are cutting your clothes, but it's advisable you add your allowance here. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to be getting the shape I want for the lower parts, because as you can see in the video, the shape has like a curve kind of shape at the front. You can decide to make it a straight V shape, you can decide to make it like a C curve shape. It just depends on you. Alright, so I decided to use a pencil and a ruler when I was sure of the kind of shape I wanted, and then I now went ahead to use the marker on it. Alright, so I decided to use the C curve shape for the purpose of the picture I posted earlier. So when I was sure of the broken line shape I had created, I went ahead to make the curve on that point, and then I added 1 inch allowance on the side for the stitching. Alright, so if you feel like this length is not long enough for you, you can go ahead and extend it by 3 inches, extend it by 4 inches for the waistline. It just depends on you. So from this point, we are going to be cutting out the pattern. Please just take note of how I'm going to cut out the pattern, and when you are cutting out the dart part, do not cut to the point where the dart stops. You are going to stop at the under bust when you are cutting. You are going to see how I'm going to cut it, because we are going to be needing that part. Since we are not doing something that needs a dart intake, we are not going to be cutting the darts from the under bust line upwards. I hope that is clear enough. All right, so just take note of how I'm going to cut this right now. So I'm going to be adding my allowance right before I cut that part. All right. And when cutting, just make sure you are cutting on the line of the marker, not after the line, not before the line. Very important. Okay. It was at this point I decided to add allowance for the purpose of this video. So I added 1 inch stitching or sewing allowance. All right. And then I cut it out. So after cutting, you're going to stop at the new chest line. Take note. Just watch how I cut it. Alright, so as you can see, I cut the under bust line straight. I didn't cut out the dart because it's not necessary. And then I decided to label it center front and side front, which is CF and SF. And do not forget to cut out the margin line, which I drew as a starter line. So after cutting out this part, this is what we have right now. So for this top part that has the extra darts, I'm going to be showing us what we're doing with it in the next slide. All right, we'll just put that aside now, and we're going to be drafting the part for the back first. All right guys, I've also gone ahead to mark out my back pattern, which I did by following the steps I did for the front. I first went ahead to mark my margin lines, which will serve as the starting line, and then I marked my shoulder divided by 2. I marked my armhole divided by 2, and that is how I got my chest line for that point. And then I went ahead to mark my bust line, under bust, waist line. We are stopping at the waistline because we do not need the full length for the back. The back does not have a basque. So the next thing we are going to be doing now is to get our armhole for the back, and then in order to do that, we have to mark our bust divided by 4 on the chest line, and then we'll be joining those 3 points together. So the difference between the front armhole and the back armhole is that on the midpoint of the armhole line, you do not need to come in by 1/2 inch for it to sit properly. All right, you just need to mark those 2 points together. I then went ahead to mark the zipper allowance. I just labeled that part of the margin, the zipper allowance. The next thing I did was to take my dart. So I took my nipple to nipple measurement on the waistline and the chest line, and I drew a straight line across that. So on the chest line, I came down by 1/2 inch, like so, and then on the waistline, I went in on both sides by 1/2 inch, and then I marked those 3 points together. The next thing we'll be doing now is to get the off shoulder armhole curve for the back, and then we're going to be going more or less the same way we went for the for the front pattern rather. So I just extended the line downwards by 1/2 inch, and then I extended it outwards. So from that point, whatever I have on the chest line, the former chest line will be the same measurement I have for the new chest line. All right, so I'm going to be coming up by 2.5 inches on the former chest line, and then I'm going to be marking a point there. I'm going to place my tape horizontally and then come in by 0.75 inches or 0.75 inch, which is also 3/4 inch. This is just me making sure the line is straight. I extended it out to that point, and then I'm going to be making a curve to my curve rule to get my new armhole line. So this point is going to be my new armhole line. All right, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is to be getting my neckline for the back. from the bust line, I just decided to go up by 1 inch, or from the chest line rather, I came down by 1 inch. So this chest line just depends on how open you want it to be. You can decide to maintain a straight line or a curved line or a v-shaped line. It just depends on you. All right, so this is just me using my pencil once again to make sure this is the line I want. Make sure that I'm sure of whatever shape I want, and when I was completely sure of it, I went ahead to use my marker to draw out the line. Alright, so after drawing out the neckline, the next thing I went ahead to do was to take my round measurements, which are my get measurements, including the darts that I'll be cutting out. So my bust, my under bust, including the dart intake, and then my waist, including the dart intake, and then I marked those points to meet each other. And then from the waistline, that's the center back waistline, I came up by half an inch, because most times when you sew it that way, it's too long, it doesn't balance well. So I was able to come up by half an inch. I went ahead to label center back and side back. Alright, and then I extended the line for the zipper. If you are using a loop, you can go in by maybe 1.5 inch. It just depends on you. Yeah, so but for the purpose of this video, I'm using zip, so I'm not going to be doing that. Alright, so I later went ahead to adjust the neckline to be lower, and then I extended the nipple to nipple measurement up to the neckline so I can cut it easily. I also went ahead to add 1 inch sewing allowance to the side like so, and then I was ready. After I cut it out, I was ready to cut out the darts, and the back pattern is more or less, it's ready for sewing. It's ready for it to be placed on fabric and cut out. Alright guys, so the back pattern is ready now. The next thing to do is to do the slash and spread method for the bustier part of the front top. This is why I told you to keep this pattern aside. I'll be using it last minute. So I already went ahead to cut out a pattern paper that is big and wide enough, at least 3 inches longer than this actual length that I have here. And for the width, I made sure it was 15 or 18 inches longer than whatever I had at this point. And then for the main pattern, I'm just going to be measuring 1.5 inches apart, which I'll be using to slash and spread it like so. All right, so from this point I'll be cutting it out. I'm cutting along the lines, but before I do that, I'll be labeling it so that I do not end up making a mistake. Okay, so I went ahead to draw margin lines as usual, and then from the top line, make sure you come down by at least 2 inches before you start this pattern, and then come down from the margin line by at least 4 inches. Then you are going to draw a straight line across both lines to make them meet. Alright, so after I had already slashed the pattern, I will be placing them. Make sure that the line for that's the bust line. That is the bust line. If you are getting confused, just make sure you label it before you cut it out. So make sure that bust line is correlating or corresponding with the line you drew with the pencil before placing the pattern on it, so that it can serve as a guideline. It can serve as a guide for you to place your pattern properly. All right, so from this point, I will be placing the first paper starting from the margin line, and then I'll be spacing it by, I used 3 inches for the spacing. All right, so I'm going to be spacing it with 3 inches margin, and then I'll place the second pattern on it like so. If you don't grab what I'm saying, please just watch the video attentively. So still making sure that the bust line is correlating with the line I marked earlier for the middle. I'm going to be placing the third line like so again after putting a 3 inches margin between them. So I'm going to be doing this for the remaining 2 patterns, and then I'm going to be joining them together. Just watch what I do. Alright, so from this point I went ahead to join the top lines together in order to get a straight line, because this will be used to cut out the main pattern for the gathers. Alright, so I'm just going to join those lines like so. So after joining the top part, I went ahead to join the bottom part to using my curve and a straight line. Just make sure that your line is, it might not be well defined, but make sure that the line is okay. Alright guys, so this is what we have. Honestly, I had no idea that my camera stopped recording. So just make sure you join the lower part, and then we're going to be adding 1/2 inch allowance around this pattern. Make sure your line is well defined. After adding the 1/2 inch allowance round, we're just going to cut it out. Alright, so this pattern is going to be used to cut on fabric because it's going to form the gathers for the bust part. Alright, so after I cut out, this is basically all we have for the fabric. Alright guys, so this is the end of this video. In our next video, we'll be drafting out the sleeve and then be sewing the fabric. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you find this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, ask questions, drop a comment. Love you guys. Bye.